now it's 10 past. Let's get started. Welcome, guys. Welcome everybody who's watching the recording afterwards. So, of course, this is the Sandro's Week Roundup. So, let's get started with some of the stories then. So, the first one here is the Meta Quest 3 being released. So this is the Meta Quest 3, and of course, this article seems to have a quite positive take on it, the future of VR. But I'll just talk about some of the kind of facts here to do with the specifications and some of my thoughts. So it's, of course, 40% slimmer than the Quest 2, so Meta have managed to, make it a bit slimmer, so that's a nice improvement. So basically, so it has double the GPU power compared to the Quest 2, as it says here, and a higher res screen. So, of course, these are some pretty good improvements on the previous Quest, which really was when the Quest brand started to get a lot more popular, with a lot more people buying the Quest 2, and I feel like this new Quest might be another kind of more of a success for Meta, because the Quest 2 had better sales than the original, but now, of course, this is quite a big upgrade, so people might buy this headset and might start using the Meta Oculus ecosystem. Or actually, now it's just Meta, isn't it? And actually, start using them for VR. And, of course, the VR market is quite niche at the moment. So, if you can get lots of people using your VR headset, that could be the thing that kind of decides who's going to be the king of VR. HTC is another player in the VR space, and they haven't really been that successful recently. But of course, some people like their products, but this will definitely be a big thing for Meta, given that there's all these spec improvements, and it already improves on something that's already like a great headset, and something that's already quite popular in the VR space, and I imagine that this headset will only make it more popular. So as you can see here, there's also now smaller and basically better controllers. Of course, it is personal preference what controllers you like, but I personally think that these look pretty nice. Overall, Meta have released this new headset. It's coming in the fall, I believe, so autumn. It's priced at $499. I haven't seen if they've released any sort of UK price yet, or EU price. So I don't know what the price will be in the UK and, of course, Europe. But, that's the price that it will come out at in the US. And, yes. So let's check the chat, make sure that nobody's made any comments on these developments before we continue on. Okay, so nobody has commented about this story, so let's just continue on to the next one. So, here's the next story. I'm pulling it up right here. Of course, later on we'll talk about Apple's potential VR developments, but that's gonna be later on in the show. Actually, more mixed reality, but sure. Anyway, first, why don't we cover the one piece of open source news this week that I really wanted to cover. A little story here, not really the biggest one. However, Linux Mint have they finally, released this new 21.2 desktop And this comes with the latest Cinnamon 5.8 desktop. So this is actually adding some features to the Cinnamon desktop, which is the primary desktop used on Linux Mint. So, of course, Cinnamon isn't the only desktop on Linux Mint. There's, of course, XFCE, Mate, all these other desktops. However, Cinnamon is the main one, and they've actually added some there's some new features with Cinnamon. So now you can now use gestures on touchpads, touch screens, and tablets. And so that's a nice new feature. So that's a nice feature for people who use portable devices. And there were some other features here, aside from gestures, such as this new apparently includes improvements to the login screen and a number of other things. However, that's the kind of main improvement, so really a kind of incremental improvement on the last edition. However, for many mobile users, laptop users as well as tablet users, this will be a nice improvement. Okay, so why don't we cover the next story? So we're moving on from the main, we're moving on from the Linux news / open source release news that we cover every week. We always cover at least one story about the open source space. However, of course, we usually cover Apple at some point. And this week will be no different because, of course, Apple are having WWDC next week. And, so if you can't attend WWDC, Apple have actually they're going to do something a bit different next week. They're going to have some extra events. Of course, they usually have some extra events. However, this is a bit bigger than usual. So a few that I just wanted to quickly mention, a few that I have in my notes here. So there is the Boulder OS event, so that's in person between the 4th of June, so today, and the 9th of June, so that's something you can do if you're in Colorado, in the US. So that's one thing outside of Cupertino that you can do. There's also the Swift GG thing. So that's that's happening online and in mainland China, from June the 5th to June the 10th. And there's also the Glucode Watch Party, which is taking place in South Africa on the 5th of June. So that's tomorrow. So that will be a Monday. Why don't we move on to the next story? I'm kind of putting the Apple kind of VR mixed reality, story near the end of this show. However, for now, why don't we cover the Fitbit story? So this is to do with Fitbit Google account integration, and how that is, happening now. So Google, of course, Google now in Fitbit, and of course, they want to integrate Fitbit into the Google ecosystem. So now they are giving you the option as of the 6th of June. So in 2 days' time, they will give you the option to actually migrate your Fitbit account from your Fitbit account to your Google account. So basically, all your data will be moved over to Google. And the search giant Google have actually said that Fitbit data won't be used in, for advertising to be in compliance with EU regulation. However, of course, some people are still worried about how Google might use this data for other purposes, like targeted advertising. But of course, they promise not to do it, but it depends on how much you trust Google here. Anyway, you might think it's just a migration. I'm sure, I'll be able to keep my Fitbit account. Well, it turns out they're gonna make the Switch mandatory in 2025. So if you actually still use your Fitbit, you're a Fitbit user, then you have to migrate to the Google, ecosystem by 2025, or else you will no longer be able to use your Fitbit device or access your Fitbit data, as it says here. So that will be a big problem for the kind of users that dislike Google and don't want to actually use a Google account with their Fitbit, because this kind of forces them to, at least by 2025. So I guess if you're a Fitbit user currently and you actually decide to, you decide that you actually don't want to, use a Google account, then you do have about 2 years to change, wearable. I guess you could use a different watch. But yeah, it's not ideal, and yeah, it's definitely not great that Google are requiring people to use Google accounts with Fitbits. And yeah, overall, not a positive development here. Anyway, I'm gonna cover the next story here. Why have we went on to WWDC again? Oh my god. My notes today. No, I meant to cover Google using AI in Gmail on mobile. So why don't we actually cover that? Why don't we just find that story right now? Managed to place the story in the wrong place. That is annoying, but here it is anyway. Here it is on my, my thing. So Google is adding AI to help you find emails faster. So find your important emails faster. That's the headline from Tech Radar. And effectively, the kind of long and short of this story is that Google are basically using the AI tech to help you sort through your email and, help handle search queries within Gmail and, filter spam and all that kind of stuff. So, of course, they've been implementing, kind of algorithms before, but now they're trying to implement more AI tech into your, into Gmail, to hopefully make your, mail experience better. However, people who are kind of critical of Google may claim that that this could be bad in the sense of, Google are now just openly reading your kind of subject lines and in your emails and stuff. And of course, they already had access to all of that data. However, using AI for this, could potentially be bad. According to some people, because, some people would claim that Google, are now going to try and use this to actually kind of spy on users, read their emails and justify it via, AI and say, well, the AI reads through your email and, yeah. However, personally, I think this could be a very cool feature to help you, kind of write emails, sort through emails. There's a lot of stuff that could be done with this AI technology. So we do have to kind of wait and see when it comes to this Gmail development. Anyway, let's continue on to the next story. We're gonna cover Google. Actually, this is about Vimeo, that video site. You probably forgot about Vimeo, didn't you? Vimeo, not exactly the most popular video site on the internet. However, of course, they have their niche, and they were kind of an early YouTube competitor, and they have announced that they are killing off their TV applications as of June the 27th. Support will be ending for these applications, and these apps include apps for Android TV / Google TV, Apple TV, Amazon Fire, and Roku. So all of those big TV platforms, and instead of actually focusing on these TV apps, they're actually going to be killing off these apps in favor of casting technology, so being able to cast stuff to your TV. So clearly they feel like that's the way forward for them, and maybe it means that they have less overhead when it comes to actually having to make these applications, and maintain them and make sure they don't have security bugs and all that. And instead they can just rely on Google integrations. Of course, a bit of a risky strategy, but I think, they clearly think that it's not worth maintaining TV applications anymore. Of course, there is the exception of enterprise integrated TV apps. However, consumers will actually lose access on June the 27th. So I'm sorry for all those Vimeo fans out there. Whoever is out there who really likes Vimeo, sadly, you will no longer be able to access it on your TV via the dedicated application. So yeah, a sad day for the Vimeo fans, I feel. Anyway, we probably should have put this. We should have put this in the Apple section. We should have just made a dedicated Apple section this week, I know. However, why not? Why don't we just cover this? This is, why don't we pull it up here? So, this is another Apple story to do with some of the latest stuff coming out of Cupertino. So, Apple actually, premiered their Apple Music Classical application on iPhone, last March. So, March 2023, and basically this application is dedicated to the classical genre, and yeah, it is definitely a interesting application, because in the past they've been trying to consolidate everything into this Apple Music brand. However, they now appear to be making these dedicated genre applications. And I do question whether these genre applications will be that popular. How many classical fans there are out there that will jump at the opportunity to try an application that has all the classical music in it. However, they have made the choice to make Apple Music and Apple Music Classic two separate apps. However, there's only one subscription for both of them. So, it's included in the Apple Music subscription. So that is pretty cool. However, I do question why, you need these dedicated genre apps when you could just integrate it into the main application. Yeah. Also, I kind of missed the main point, didn't I? That they've actually released the Android app for Apple Music Classical before the iPad or Mac apps. So, of course, they've decided to make the choice to actually, release a version for Android before they optimized it for iPad, or even released a Mac application for it. So that is an interesting choice by Apple. But yes, that's the main story there. An interesting. Actually, why don't we cover the mixed reality headset first before we cover UK rental? An interesting UK rental development. UK car rental, actually. So Apple in WWDC have announced a number of things. As in, they're gonna announce a number of things. What am I talking about here? But yeah, they're expected to announce some sort of VR mixed reality headset. And of course, there could, there's some interesting things that could be kind of integrated into this into this headset, such as a micro OLED display and a 4K resolution per eye, so that'll be pretty high resolution. However, this is meant to be quite an expensive headset, as it says here. It's meant to cost at least around $3,000, and yeah, that would be a very expensive headset. I'm not sure how many even mega Apple fans would be happy spending $3,000 of their hard-earned cash just to, use this Apple headset. However, after the $99, display stand thing a few years ago, I can't actually tell you whether Apple fans will, buy this stuff, or whether people will say that, that they think that it's worth it because Apple has such high product quality, or that maybe they think that Apple are the best or something. So yeah, so maybe people will buy this headset because they're really big fans of Apple. But I feel like it might be more of a niche market because, yeah, basically, there aren't that many people out there that are willing to spend $3,000 on a headset. Maybe this will be the first, headset in a line of headsets from Apple, but we truly do not know at the current moment. But for now, it appears that there will be quite an expensive, this will be quite an expensive headset. And yeah, it might not actually it might not actually be the most popular thing. Because yeah, people can justify paying lots of money for many things. However, $3,000 for a headset seems like a little bit of a stretch, especially when the competition, such as Meta, have much lower prices. The Meta Quest 2, like, how much does it cost right now? Like, let me see. Oh god, Google. Don't usually Google things, but yeah, right now it costs about 350 euros, and even accounting for exchange rate, that is much lower than this. And when you've got such a fantastic headset being released by Meta, the Quest 2 is already a fantastic VR headset. When you've already got that on the market with a lot of great games, then it does make you question whether people will be willing to pay so much more for this Apple device, or whether, maybe they can be tempted to do it. However, with this new Quest 3, making so many improvements on the previous Quest and keeping a low price tag, it's definitely questionable about whether people can actually, whether Apple can actually make a good case for paying a lot of money for a headset. Because they've managed to make the case before for buying a really expensive flagship phone to many Apple fans. And, whether they'll be able to do this for a VR headset, which, it's a bit less popular. VR and AR is not as big of a space as the phone space, and isn't as established, so many people will be unsure about whether they'll actually enjoy VR or AR, and whether it'll be worth it. However, I think there will be people out there who will try it, out maybe, and maybe think, oh yeah, this is cool, and spend all that money on this new, AR, VR headset thing, mixed reality. And yeah, we'll just have to see with the WWDC conference about what happens and whether people, what the kind of reaction is to this new AR VR headset thing, mixed reality, and just see what happens in general. But yeah, it's mainly meant to be a kind of, it's meant to be a mainly a VR headset, but they appeared to kind of want to make some sort of parallel here, so that will definitely be interesting. Yeah, it's basically just wait and see. Anyway, guys, let's get on with the next story. So now we've covered all of those stories, why don't we go to the last one? I'll check if anything's in the chat. Has anybody commented anything? Nah, no they haven't, so why don't we just get on with it? So, there's a new UK car rental service, there's a new, a new car rental service called Fetch. So it's a new service from the British startup Imperium Drive. So they have a bit of a unique proposition here. Not really something that many firms seem to be doing. However, the idea of this this car rental service is that there's basically a remote driver who drives the car to the actual the person renting the car. So, of course, there's a human in control in a remote office. So right now they use a kind of gaming-like setup with 4 different monitors and a steering wheel, kind of reminiscent of a, gaming setup. And of course, these people have a lot more responsibility than people playing video games. However, this is kind of a typical racing setup. You can even see the kind of gaming style chair here. So yeah, and there is some criticism from some experts or critics in general. So one example is Simon Williams, a spokesperson for the RAC, who stated that, quote, while this scheme has been tested very successfully over an 18-month period, we worry that the experience of remotely driving a vehicle distances the driver from the potential road safety consequences in a video game-like manner. So that's quite an interesting, perspective on this. The quote is, I think, let me find the quote itself. Yeah, it's right here. And yeah, it's an interesting perspective that maybe this remote driving could actually distance these drivers, from the actual reality on the road. That, if you hit something, that you could actually, cause an injury or a fatality, and that it's not a video game. And this could cause a kind of not emotional disconnection, but maybe just a disconnection in general. From the kind of, reality. So I do think that this will probably end up just being something that happens and it'll be fine. However, there are some problems, what if the actual, driver is disconnected from the internet connection? What if the car can't receive the signal anymore? What if, there's no signal? What does the car do? Does it just decide to, just stop doing anything? Just what happens? Does it just stall? Does it have some sort of self-driving? Right now it doesn't have any self-driving, but it is driverless. But of course, there's no autonomy. There was somebody actually driving it remotely. However, this is one step towards self-driverless. Nobody actually being in the car to start with. And, you know, it might be nice if, you know, if you're picking up a car that maybe there's not actually somebody there in the car when you pick it up. Maybe there's nobody in the front, and maybe you can just jump straight in. That would be quite an interesting thing. And of course, the test happened in Milton Keynes, the company claims that it successfully drove over 1,000 miles without a single collision, using these remote operators. So that's pretty interesting. And I don't know how this development might, you know, kind of turn out, whether regulators will be okay with this, or whether, you know, there'll be so much backlash that they end up having to backtrack and, you know, get rid of this, postpone this technology. And whether, you know, we'll just have to wait until autonomous, you know, fully autonomous cars, until we can actually, you know, no longer have drivers within cars. Yeah, basically. And of course, you know, if this actually works out, a lot of other applications could use it. I mean, imagine remote bus drivers. Actually, maybe not. Yeah, bus drivers have other jobs apart from, you know, being behind the wheel. However, you know, there is the idea that you could make more, you know, driving situations remote. And that's quite interesting overall. I mean, of course, when you pick up this rental car, you know, it's actually, you're going to have to drive it yourself. However, when it's driven to you, it's actually, you know, remotely driven to you. So that's the kind of remote aspect of it. The driverless aspect. Not really driverless, I guess, but yeah, sure. So in a bit of a silly mistake by me, I left out the story in the title of this week's show about Cortana from the main stream. However, I will actually cover it now in this edited version of the show. So you're clearly watching this afterwards because this was not in the main show. However, let's cover it now. So Microsoft is actually killing off Cortana on Windows starting in late 2023. So with Windows 10, Microsoft brought along Cortana to the main desktop. It was, of course, on Windows Mobile, I think 8.1 before that. However, it came to Windows Desktop with Windows 10. And now they have announced that they are actually developing a new AI system for Windows called Windows Copilot. And alongside Bing AI, it will be replacing Cortana on Windows. So there is no longer going to be a desktop Cortana app. It will no longer be implemented on Windows, you know. It will no longer be a dedicated application or integrated into Windows in general. And, of course, a while back, they got rid of the mobile application for Cortana, you know, the dedicated mobile app on many devices, and I covered that back when that happened, and now we're actually seeing the pretty much full sunsetting of Cortana, aside from some specific applications. So, for example, you can still access it via Outlook Mobile, Teams Mobile, Microsoft Teams Display, and Microsoft Teams Rooms. However, of course, not that many people use the Cortana integration in these platforms. Apparently, they're keeping it in these applications for now. However, I feel like through time, they will eventually get rid of Cortana in all applications. And of course, it wasn't the biggest success. Mobile assistants with Google Assistant having a lot more popularity, and of course Siri even being more popular than this Cortana assistant. However, it is sad to see Cortana go away. For all of the flaws of Cortana, it was, you know, kind of interesting. But anyway, another tech product is going away, another piece of software. And of course, because it's totally reliant on the cloud, if you try and use Cortana after its sunset, then it won't work apart from specific offline applications such as, local stuff, maybe on Windows Mobile, maybe it still works on specific local applications. However, for most people, Cortana will be no more. Anyway, guys, let's get back to the end of the stream, the live stream, when I actually ended. So why don't we transition from this little extra bit back to the main live stream. Anyway, guys, thank you for watching. I know we've been covering a lot of news today. Hopefully today it hasn't been too much of a ramble. And yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. You can check me out on Mastodon, Twitter, all of the other platforms that I'm on. You'll see it in the description. And yeah, just be safe out there, guys. Of course, we do this every Sunday at 6 p.m. British time, or 5 p.m. UTC. So British summertime is the time zone currently in Britain. But UTC is just the universal kind of standard time. The universal time, whatever it's called again. Anyway, so UTC, 5 p.m. UTC, so you can adjust that for your time zone. So, yes. So, yeah, guys, as always, stay safe out there. Have a great Sunday, or, whatever day it is for you. And, yes, see you guys next time.